I'm a potter by trade. I was an apprentice to a ceramic artist in my hometown in Sheboygan, Wisconsin. And I had the apprenticeship when I was about 13 through probably about 15. And before that, I had classes at the local art center, and that's where I met the man who taught me the pottery skills. And he liked what I was doing because he asked me to work in his studio. And so I did. And it was a very fun time for me working in clay. But when I found glassblowing at the University of Wisconsin, that was, I knew I had stumbled on something that I really wanted to do because it was such a challenge. I'd done so many things in clay, and I met a glassblower at an art festival when I was 15, and I says to him, well, how did you make that? And he's like, well, it's really kind of complicated, but it's not hard once you know how to do it. There's also, I mean, I looked at a wine glass he had made, and I was like, wow, I could make that out of clay, but how on earth did he make that out of glass? And that was really the beginning for me, was just that I had to know, I had to find out. So it's been a real exciting journey for me. So.
Is that a common thing? Because it's funny, because that's the same exact way my dad, no, I mean, it's obviously a little different interests,
yeah.
But he started as a potter and then moved into glasswork. Is that common for a lot of glass artists?
I think it's pretty common.
Just because pottery's a little bit more accessible at first?
Yeah, I think it was more common back when he and I were kids and growing up, you know, to make that kind of transition, to start there. I think kids more are starting with glass these days than making that transition. I just have that feeling. I just haven't met that many kids that have come through my shop that have really know how to do pottery at all. So, but it gives me an aesthetic too, because I started back so long ago in clay. And so I have the people that taught me ceramics were, you know, sort of this Midwestern Germanic Bauhaus tradition. And so what I've just like, I grow it from that. I use that for a launch pad for me aesthetically. And you know, I've been influenced by everything, as most artists are, I think. I get tired of doing the same thing over and over. So you'll see, if you look around here, you see an incredible variety of things, but it's still only a sampling of what I've done. So, it's still exciting for me to go in there and make things every day.
Can you talk a little bit about your process? So I guess I really just know mostly my dad said, just traditional glass blowing. Is that kind of how you talk about your process?
Oh yeah, it's pretty much, glass blowing, what I do. It's pretty much what your dad does. And, but I have tools he doesn't have, and he has tools that I don't have. And so it's almost like the tools have shaped me. Like, I use the tools for shaping things, but the tools shape me too, because how I'm going to use them is completely different than maybe how I thought I might use them. Like when I first started making flowers the way I make them now, I had no idea that when I ordered these tools, which I used for making the fins on the fish, that I'd be using to squeeze the glass into shapes that I would turn into petals for flowers. And so because I have those tools, and back then when I made the first flowers like that, I was so excited because, wow, here's something I'd never seen before, and I was just making it with these tools that I had commissioned to make.
So you first started making fish, and then you realized that the fish fins could have been applied to making flowers.
Exactly. Well, I was making the tool that I'd commissioned to make the fins, which I designed, was sort of this pliers type thing, and I was able to squeeze a glass disc and then cut into it and put a little center, and there's a daisy. And so that was the start of it all.
So was it an accident, or did it kind of?
It was sort of, it was more than an accident. It was almost, I was in I was at my studio, and this guy wanted to make flowers, and I was like, I don't want to make flowers. And he was like, I want to make fish. And he's like, okay, we'll make it your way. We'll make flowers, but we're going to do them my way. You know, so it was like, okay. So all of a sudden I had to come up with something like on the spur of the moment. And so that's how I started making these flowers. It's sort of like the antagonism of it, through antagoning.
So when was the first time, how long have you been making flowers for in this kind of fashion, like these bouquet sets?
So I've been doing this style of flower since I think it was 94, so about 19, no, how many years is that? 24 years? 24 years.
24 years, yeah.
Yeah, I think it was, yeah. So, yeah, and it's been great. It's been, it's sort of, it's been like something I've pursued and enjoyed, and it's challenged me, and it continues to challenge me.
So has it changed the style of the bouquets when you started?
Oh, totally, totally, very much so. The colors are like the stem color is totally different than what I had, it was. You know, they were pretty rudimentary flowers, the first ones that I made. Now, you know, I'm making orchids and bird of paradise and other more fanciful flowers as well, and also some real simple flowers, just because color. People want color in their lives, and this is what better way than with a glass flower to bring, you know, the joy of color into your environment.
Right.
It's always there, and it's the eternal beauty. And
so where do you get a lot of your inspiration? Do you actually get it outside, or how do you?
Oh, definitely. I'm a gardener.
Oh, okay.
I love to
Perfect.
garden, and yeah, I have a nice little backyard in Providence, a lot of fruit trees, and the community garden. I love being a part of the community there, and I use these botanical specimens. I'll bring them into the studio and pull them apart sometimes, use them as models.
Wow, so that's awesome. It's kind of mixing nature and art and mixing it all together.
Yeah.
Do you ever do so I'm sure like Providence has a specific kind of flower that can grow there. I mean, you can get a variety, but do you ever venture out, travel and look at
Oh,
other
yes.
vegetation?
Yes. Like I travel to Central America and see the vegetation there, and come back, and you know, the leaves now, you can put different color centers in the leaves. You know, all these things kind of affect how I'm going to work. What am I going to make? When I see things out in nature, I just, you know, it's wonderful to have that opportunity to go into the shop and try to replicate as best possible, or come up with a way that's, oh yeah, it looks like an iris, or it feels like a orchid, and you know, just try to keep honing it until it looks more and more like it, and then, I mean, I'm not like a Blaschka, like the guys at the museum up at Harvard, at the Museum of Natural History there, that made the glass flowers there. I'm not making botanical specimens. I'm making things that people will enjoy, hopefully for the rest of their lives and into the future generations.
So more interpretive creativity versus
Right.
like exact art.
Exactly. I'm not doing botanical specimens.
So I think it's always interesting when an artist, I always look at Wes Anderson, it's like obviously it's a different medium, but
Yeah.
his films have a very specific tone. And I always think it's interesting when an artist has almost a niche. And then how do you feel being almost a glass creator for this specific niche? Do you want to pursue it deeper, or do you sometimes ever want to just like throw away the idea of flowers and completely redirect? Or how does it feel in this context?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes the whole flower thing just gets to me. It just like, I just want to get out of the business, because, I mean, it's like people want that flower, one flower, two flowers, and I'm like, oh man, for me to start every day making, like, I want to make like, I want to fill the oven up. I don't want to make like, have to stop, you know, put away a color, bring another color out, find find a color I can't find, like my hundreds and hundreds of different bags of color that I have laying around, powders, frits, rods of glass, different colors, and then make something to spec, which sometimes I have to do because people buy something from me and it breaks in shipping, or they break it, or their maid breaks it, or housekeeper. But I'll make it for the people, because what else? You got to do something for, give back to people, make people happy. It's been my life's work. So try to give what I can back.
So can we step in talking about the act of, beyond flowers, just the simple act of your art and how it feels for you, like when you go and blow glass?
When I go blow glass, it's it's pretty much every day. So I'm just happy that I have an assistant that comes in, and they're real regular. And it'd be nice to have more dedicated help. But right now, I've got one guy who's helping in the shop, doing the blowing with me, and another person does the sandblasting and grinding and polishing. And but it makes me happy to go in there and just create. At the end of the day, when I fill up an oven with good work, it feels good. It really does. I like, and then in the morning, it's like Christmas. I come in and open up the oven, and there'll be things I made that are like, oh, that one really came out good. Yeah. And sometimes you get gifts you don't want to, but.
Can you recall back to when you started glassblowing, that kind of feeling you had when you first kind of discovered it, or you kind of felt your skills grow?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there were so many things I couldn't do, and I had to do most of it by myself because I couldn't get people to help me. But that's how school is, right? You get more skills, and people want to come along, and they want to help, they want to learn. So, the first time at school when I opened that furnace, the first day I opened that furnace door, and it's 2,000 degrees coming right out at me. I'm like, I'm going to do this for a living? I must be nuts. Be like, it's just, I'd been around heat for a long time with my kilns and stuff, but a glass furnace is something different because you're right in front of it for hours and hours and hours, and then you're done for the day. Yeah, so far it's been very, very good to me.
So actually, I've blown glass for a long time, off and on, just with my dad and whatever. And maybe it's because I worked with my dad, but I know that I wouldn't want to be a glass blower. And I would find interesting when people are, I don't know if you know Dave McDermott as well.
Sure.
Just other people like studios that are nearby that are just completely drawn to it.
Yeah.
I'm always fascinated because obviously it's beautiful, and as an adult, I completely appreciate what goes into it, but
yeah,
it's something that's so hard, and I have so much respect for glass blowers.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you can comment on that, like the difficulty of glass blowing. I think is, like you said,
oh, yeah,
the trial and error and all that.
Yeah.
But you still keep pursuing it and make great work.
Oh, thanks. But yeah, there's so many glass blowers out there that are better than I am and better than I'll ever be. But I think I'm a pretty good designer. I think I have my ideas and such are original. At least the flower things. Of course, glass vases and fish. Those have been around for a long time. I make some cool waves. I'm not the first glass blower to make waves, but I make them in a way that really no one else was making them when I started making them. So we all seem to borrow from each other in the glass community, and some people get really offended by it. Like, look at all the lawsuits Dale Chihuly's launched, a woman said to me at a show, I told her that a friend of mine wanted to replicate one of her designs, and she said, the creative mind is infinite, so he'll do something a little different than I'm doing it anyway. So she was happy that he was using her as an inspiration, I think.
Right. I
Yeah.
feel like a lot of art. I mean, I often go towards films, but like Quentin Tarantino, applies all
Yeah.
older films into his film, but he does it in his own way that it becomes completely brand new.
Yeah.
So just
Very
kind of
much so.
What?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. To kind of wrap this up,
Yeah.
if you can talk about just I know it's kind of a very broad thing, but the concept of art and like whether the importance that people pursue it or what art means for you.
Yeah. Well.
As a working artist.
Right. Well, I guess like some people are really moved by color and form. They are. I've seen people kind of brought to tears actually by beauty. I've been moved that way myself, by some artworks, and so I think that I'm not really telling much of anything of a story, but people still they're affected by what I do, and moved by it. So I feel that's a pretty fulfilling thing to be doing. I'm also teaching a bit. I've been teaching some. I built a little portable furnace so I can take it to grade schools and high schools, and, wherever, and that's really fun for me to do. I love doing that, showing how to blow glass to some young kids. That's probably about the most fun I can think of doing with my work.
Do you think it's important to give kids exposure to art?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it gets them thinking about all sorts of things. The nature of things. When a child has clay and makes something with his hands out of clay, I mean, it just gives them a grasp on reality and also is creative. The imagination. And so, if I can inspire a kid to have more imagination, or just have some a feeling for the material world, it's a great thing.